Hi, Alik. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. Big fan of your work.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm great. Yourself?
Good, thank you.
My first question is, what drew you to Invasion, and what did you want to bring to the series?
Oh, that's a good question. I watched season one and I became an instant fan of it. I just loved the uh, contemplative nature of it. Uh, kind of spoke my language. And so obviously, once that hook was done, I wanted to meet with Simon and the team and, Apple team and my agent arranged that. And uh, it felt natural. It felt good. Although it's uh, sci-fi, and I didn't really do much of that in my previous career or past life. um, so I figured, since it's a character-based, drama-based story in the background of alien invasion, it kind of felt natural, and so it drew me to the project, and I wanted to do it, and it worked out.
I'm glad it did. Especially like, I know you have your background is like you have cinematography base, and it shows through, especially in like the visual storytelling. I mean, just the opening sequence, like Chef's Kiss, like it's amazing. Uh, and so I just want to ask, how's your approach to how did you bring your like visual storytelling to, or what was your approach to bringing your visual storytelling to season two?
Um, it's kind of very simple actually. You sort of visualize it as you go along, reading the script because the script has a very distinct way of describing the action. And when the description of the action starts being interpreted, it kind of falls into your personal aesthetic realm, if you will. So whatever you kind of imagine as you reading the script, you're sort of like imagining it unfolding in a very particular way, and whether you can help it or not, you kind of bring in your own kind of like visual dynamic into it, or your interpretation of it, or anything that you've assembled over the course of your life in a Rolodex of images. And so being that I have extensive background in cinematography, I saw it in terms of uh, not only the story elements, but also in elements of the composition, of lighting, of um, camera movement, of blocking, of sort of like arranging the events within the frame such that there is an element of what Simon Kinberg wanted to have propulsion, the element of movement, the element of energy, the element of going. And after all those initial discussions with Simon, it kind of started for the visual um, uh, language started kind of developing of its own, uh, and all I had to do is really just compile a whole bunch of shots, and sometimes I needed to storyboard things so that everyone understood how special visual effects would work, and as a result of it, we sort of uh, created a unified vision of what that opening was. And so that everyone had a blueprint of the vision, um, basically as scripted, and then we extrapolated on that. And then I'm glad that it kind of worked out because it does have that propulsive energy and energetic energy to start the season.
It definitely does. It's speaking about that, like you talk about, it started with the script, and then as you imagined it as you're reading it. When you read, um, when you read anything, is that how you picture it? You always kind of picture how it would shoot cinematically.
You know, uh, Funnily enough, I don't really picture it like I don't go into it deciding that I'm going to picture it in a very particular way, right?
Mhm.
Uh, it's always, for me, it's always, I read for the sake of the story. And it just so happens that this episode was a real page turner. You just want to keep reading it. It's a very interesting episode. Um, and as you keep reading it, you can't help yourself, but the script is helping you to form some sort of imagery as you go along.
Hmm.
Um, and you basically just extrapolate on what's being presented to you on the page, and then how you interpret it visually as you go along. And then, so the first read is not technical at all. It's more like for enjoyment value.
Hmm.
But you can't help um, yourself but already see certain amount of visuals. So like you kind of like, oh, I know what I'm going to do with Mitski. I think I'm going to bring her in from the alley, and I think I'm going to get her into the um, into the scene, not first up, but let's say she's going to be like a fourth up or fifth up. So basically you build it up until you bring in the primary character into the scene, and it kind of starts evolving that way. But in the beginning, you don't read it for that value. You just read it for pure enjoyment. And then when you read it again and again and again, you start breaking it down. It becomes very technical and very fractured.
Fracture. When you say fracture, do you mean like piece by piece? Like you start to
Yeah,
do like, okay, the blocking, the lighting,
absolutely,
and
absolutely. Well, you have to do it like that because
mhm.
you need to create a plan.
Okay, that's awesome. I like it. I like that though. But the first, I like how you go through for the enjoyment, and then so when you're reading it and you go for the emotions and stuff like, how do you balance that with kind of the sci-fi elements and then the kind of like the action elements? How do you balance that out with like the actor? Like how do you bring them to that same spot?
It's actually very simple. Honestly, it's not rocket science here. Because it's based on character, because it's based on drama. Um, you don't clutter your mind all too much with sci-fi energy of it because it will come of its own. What you're basically building is drama.
Hmm.
And the drama is such that, look, humanity needs to save itself from this invasion. And they need to fight back. They need to adapt. They need to find ways of being. They need to be just as smart as the invaders are, if not smarter, in order to win the ultimate battle, right? So what you're creating basically is um, the curve of the drama, in the background of which you're not coming terrestrial animal. You're not battling terrestrial animal, terrestrial enemy. You battling extraterrestrial enemy. Simple as that.
Okay. Okay. Speak kind of like the the drama aspect of it. You've worked on a number of projects around the world, and Invasion's a global, like very global story. Um, how has your experience, working with like in your previous projects influence your work or how you approached Invasion's global tale and like bringing that authenticity to each faction, each part of it?
Well, creating large canvas um, uh, can large canvas storytelling is not something new to me at all. I mean, I've cut my teeth on big shows like Game of Thrones and Rome and Marco Polo. I mean, those are spectacular canvas um, um, shows, and Invasion is very much in that same realm, if not more so. Um, you don't really think about the scope uh, and grandness of it. It's implicit. It's there. It's on a page. Um, so what you concern yourself with is depicting it and creating it as honestly to the written material as possible. And then obviously, you set up shots such that, I mean, I don't know how to set up shots any other way than what has been set up. So, I designate the lens, I designate the camera position, I understand how we're going to do the blocking, and then I communicate all that to the crew. And then you look in the monitor, go like, "Wow, this is pretty scopy." But, you don't think about it.
Okay.
You're basically building all the blogs, And then you're double checking it. You're like, oh, this is good. This is big. And then, you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, 10. And then you put it all together, putting it all together on a timeline, and you're realizing that you not just you, but the entire team has created something significant and quite big.
I like that. I like that. I like that approach. It definitely works. If I
You
can't
just
explain
you
it,
don't you don't want to go into a thing saying that, oh, we're gonna do this, bang, man. Because usually it's not going to translate as a bang. It's you don't want to think about it. You don't want to clutter your mind with that. What you want to clutter your mind with is being true, and elicit the most honest performances that would invoke some sort of emotion from the viewer, from the audience, right? And if that happens, then you've succeeded. And if that happens in the background of a big canvas, then you've succeeded twice.
That's awesome. Alec, well, thank you so much. That's my time. And I want to say you definitely elicited my emotions, at least for, in season 2, and succeeded far more than twice. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.